What I'm into this week is I rewatched Spider-Man 3.
Oh, you did.
I did.
We talked about it when we saw Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
which, by the way, this episode's going to be about action movies. So tell us about the action in Spider-Man.
So I am a huge fan of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, specifically 1 and 2. I have not seen. I've rewatched those movies. I own them. I've rewatched them very regularly. 3 I've not seen again since I first saw it in theaters over 11 years ago.
It has been that long.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, I remember it being very, very offensively bad, right? Which is
like
why
a middle finger to you.
But it's 10 years have happened since then, and not only have there been other Spider-Man movies, there have been significantly more superhero movies.
At least 10.
Yeah, so it was interesting going back and rewatching it and realizing that it's actually a pretty solid. It is easily the weakest of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Which that really hurt it. That hurt it.
Yeah, that hurt it. And also, but that's also a really high bar. Those first 2 movies are basically the template for every superhero movie that's come since, essentially. So rewatching it's actually really solid. It has some really beautiful moments in it. I would argue that it's a very good movie right up until they really invest in the black suit stuff. Specifically, there's 2 scenes back to back that are some of the worst scenes in any superhero movie, and that's the thing that everybody, for the most part, that's the thing everybody remembers, except for me. I remember one of those scenes, which is when Peter is the montage where he's on the street and his hair is slicked and he's getting new clothes and he's like dancing in the street and everything
with like the landlord's wife daughter. I don't remember. Yeah,
that's the scene I remember not liking. I completely blocked from my memory the scene where he goes into the bar to basically taunt Mary Jane with Gwen Stacy, and then there's a whole dance number in that.
On the chair.
And that is how we judge this movie. And I don't think that's fair. In hindsight, going back and revisiting the movie, I don't think it's fair that it's judged. Those 2 scenes, very bad. I don't think it's fair that the whole movie gets judged because of those 2 scenes.
Here's a rebuttal.
Okay.
If it's memeable, we're allowed to make fun of it.
I'm not saying don't make fun of those scenes.
I think they deserve it.
I'm saying if you revisit the movie as a whole, I think the creativity behind the action sequences, specifically with Sandman, like the visual stuff that they do with Sandman is really amazing. Also, the sequence where once he's been in the collider, whatever that thing is he stumbles into,
when he turns into Sandman.
Once he's made into Sandman and he first emerges and he's trying to reconstruct himself, it almost functions as his own short film. And it's beautiful and it's poetic. There's also a little scene where Aunt May is describing how Uncle Ben gave her wedding ring, which is something that super movies just don't invest in anymore. Is these beautiful little character moments. Like I would love to see Marissa Tomei get a moment like that in one of these Spider-Man Homecoming movies, because it's very revealing of her character and also informs Peter and where he's at, and is also a really elegant reminder of the backbone of this entire franchise, which is the death of Uncle Ben, and also backbone to that movie because they introduced that Sandman is actually the killer, which plays a lot better in hindsight than it did when I first saw it.
Yeah, because it kind of felt like a weird.
It's like, what the
retcon.
hell? Yeah.
You did mention those heartfelt moments, and you're forgetting when Drax was invisible in the newest Infinity War movie, and when would we be able to take the time to do that in the Spider-Man movie?
Good point.
Go ahead and suck on
that. Sure. But I also say that he's talking about action. We're talking about action stuff today. The action scene where Peter fights Harry early on in the movie when he's the new Goblin, which, by the way,
with the flying snowboard.
Yeah, they were very much trying to be like, hey, don't worry, we're not going to do any of that lame Green Goblin stuff. Here's all the new cool stuff, and that hasn't aged very well. But that sequence, the fights with Sandman, even to a degree, the last fight, although that's kind of when the wheels have gone off. They shouldn't have done the Venom stuff. I love Venom. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Arguably, he's actually my favorite Spider-Man villain. They shouldn't. It derails the whole movie. Even though thematically it connects with the idea that I think is interesting to explore, where Peter's kind of feeling himself too much, and he needs to be brought down a peg. It's almost like an explanation of like why Peter needs to have Parker luck, like, or else he's going to be a jerk. Like, he needs to be humbled continuously.
Yeah.
Even though the Venom stuff kind of like pairs well with that, it throws the entire movie off.
Because also so much stuff is happening from every different angle. At the very least, with like all the multiple people they try to add to Amazing Spider-Man 2, I really don't like that movie. I tried to rewatch it once and I was like, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop. But at least everything kind of connected back to one thing like that was a little
Yeah.
that you could understand. In that movie, you have origins for like 3 different characters from 3 different things.
Well, and it's tough too with
that
Spider-Man
all
3.
connect to Peter very specifically and personally.
Yeah, and it's weird that because of Venom, they have to go through the trouble of introducing Eddie Brock, even though there's at least 2 characters that could have filled that role that we'd already established. One is Harry, because the reason Harry hates Peter makes sense, and also they give him more reasons to hate Peter throughout that movie. Considering the symbiote comes from symbiote comes from space,
Wow.
whatever. Anyway,
Wow.
Jameson.
Jonah Jameson?
No, his son in Spider-Man 2 that's supposed to marry Mary Jane, the astronaut. He's supposed to marry Mary Jane, and then Peter wrecks the wedding, essentially. And it's like he's already an astronaut that has a reason to hate both Peter and Spider-Man. He could be the reason it comes back. Like, it's there. It's all there. You know what I mean?
Okay, but like you have a good pitch for it. Wouldn't people be upset with that because you're not getting your Eddie Brock? I know people aren't happy with that Venom interpretation, but what could you
Especially
imagine?
especially then, because I think the only real Venom at that point, maybe Matt Gargan was Venom at that point, but traditionally it was Eddie. Now enough people, we've had Flash, there's in the cartoon, Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, it was Harry. Enough people have been Venom that I think you could get away with it.
Yeah.
Then I think it would not have been as well received.
Yeah. Could you mind-boggling if people just didn't let directors do what they wanted to do in a movie because thematically it made sense.
No.
They had to give you your goddamn dumb character looking the way you want them to.
But rewatching it, I really did enjoy it, and I think it's worth revisiting and relooking. It's definitely not like a Batman and Robin situation.
No, I
Yeah.
don't remember it like that. I just remember being super let down by
Yeah.
it. Not upset. No, there's stuff that the dancing.
Again,
is,
those 2 scenes are really. I'm not defending those 2 scenes. They could easily just cut those from the movie.